The Crown needs to prove beyond reasonable doubt that you are guilty in order for the judge to give you a sentence. Those words, beyond reasonable doubt, stuck into my mind like neon lights as my mother and I walked out of that Sudbury courthouse. Just 26 hours prior, I was a high-status professional with a figured-out life. Now, I was standing in the wreckage of my own arrest. But the human mind in crisis will cling to absolutely anything in comfort. When the court support worker handed us that single, tiny shred of hope, it completely outshined the guilt, the shame, and the depression that I was feeling. What it did do was unite my mother and I back together, which I will be forever grateful for. However, let me be clear, tackling a legal proceeding is done best with a unified team by your side. Rebuilding that bridge with my mother was the single most important factor in my eventual defense. Hope and faith are powerful, but in the mind of an active addict, they are instantly weaponized. My mind started playing lawyer, spinning my circumstances and minimizing my actions to protect my own ego. Because my brain believed that we had found a loophole, it demanded a reward. When we left the courthouse, my very first request was to stop at the beer store. Facing my unmedicated feelings and my new reality was the absolute last thing I wanted to do. So I grabbed a 12-pack and immediately drained 2 cans right there in the parking lot before we even put the car back in drive. The alcohol always came first. It would take me months to realize and finally admit that. As autopilot took back over, I knew I had to call my partner. She likely had been worried sick, but I did not take the road of accountability or responsibility. I took the easy way out. Imagine that. I was always looking for a shortcut for anything that didn't involve the very substances that I loved to do. I called her, not to apologize, but to break up with her. It was far easier to numb the pain and sever that relationship than it was to navigate a domestic crisis on top of a legal one. I kept it together until I heard her voice, but then I broke. I choked out, "I got arrested. I'm a horrible person. I'm doing you a favor and just ending it. You deserve better than me." All she could whisper back at the time was, "Okay," through a shaky voice. That was it. I checked the box, closed the door on that fallout, and locked my entire focus on the stash of drugs that was waiting for me at home. My mom drove us back to the hotel. The plan was to shower and go for dinner with her and her partner. This brought a massive new wave of shame. Facing another person with my arrest? To survive it, I snuck a few more beers into my room to reduce the anxiety while I was getting ready. Looking back, it is terrifyingly clear. My mother, her partner, and I were all performing an act. We were trying to ignore the gravity of the situation by pretending to go on with our lives the exact same way as before on the exact same path that got me arrested to begin with. I wouldn't hit the true bottom for another 48 hours. At dinner, we made a game plan to retrieve my vehicle from a Hydro One property. To them, it was logistics. To me, it was my golden ticket to sneak back to my house, get my hands on the stash of drugs that I'd been waiting for. I had been explicitly instructed to not step onto Hydro One property without an escort. But the insatiable craving to use completely outweighed any fear of the law or consequences of my actions. I rationalized it instantly. The gate was unlocked. My keys are in the vehicle. Anyone could have just walked in, grabbed my vehicle, and left. That's exactly what I did. Walked through the gate, grabbed my car, and told my mother I'd be heading home to go to bed. They thought I was calling it quits. I actually drove straight to my house, grabbed $300 worth of my supply, knowing that I'd burned through it before sunrise, did a quick hit to scratch that itch, and I headed to my hotel room to escape reality the only way that I knew how. This is the precise moment that a family's defense strategy collapses. When an individual is released on bail, the adrenaline, the fear, and the addiction take the wheel. Families will try to perform normalcy to keep from falling apart, while the individual systematically breaches their conditions just to numb the pain. Your defense attorney is fighting the criminal code in a courthouse. They cannot sit in your hotel room, police your behavioral coping mechanisms, or manage your delusion running rampant in the household. This is exactly where we step in. At the Unpolished path, we bridge the massive gap between the courthouse and your living room. We provide your family with the objective peer-led accountability frameworks, and daily operational checklists required to stabilize your household while navigating the system. If your family is dealing with the first 24 hours of a post-bail release, you cannot afford to play pretend and keep your eyes closed. Secure your legal counsel for the statutory defense, then go to the unpolishedpath.ca to download our immediate post-release containment framework. Stop guessing and let's build your blueprint to survive the night today.